like 4 months because at that time, stage of my life, anything I take on, I'm going to finish it. By hook or crook, I'm going to finish it. And that's kind of my philosophy of life now. And so I decided I would pursue an acting career. But now I have no money, and I got to take acting classes, so I went up going to my acting school on my GI Bill. And so anyway, I remember going to my first audition. Now I'm going to try out for a little tiny part in a movie, and I go there, and it's what they call a cattle call, where hundreds of people are showing up for the same part. So I arrived there, and there's like 100 actors there, and a lot of them I recognize from television. And I go, golly, I wonder if I can get their autograph. You know, now I'm trying out for the same part they are. So I said, well, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to figure out another angle here. So I wound up writing my own screenplay called Good Guys Wear Black. And I wound up going around Hollywood for 4 years. Now I'm still, you know, by nature, I'm still pretty shy. And so I'm going around trying to sell this script and me to these producers in Hollywood. Now they would see me because being a world champion, they want to see what a world champion looked like, but they had no intention of hiring me. But so I went around for 4.5 years trying to sell this screenplay. Finally, I wound up finding a young producer who was willing to gamble on me. And we wound up doing Good Guys Wear Black. Then after I finished the film, no one wanted it. No studio wanted it. So this man said, well, we're going to what we call four-wall in those days, where you rent a movie and go out and show the movie, and whatever money you made over the rental, you kept. So we went up getting 16 prints of this movie and going out, hitting all the little towns in the country, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, and so forth. And I was going around and doing all these demonstrations, all promoting Good Guys Wear Black, and it wound up becoming a very successful film. And then I wound up doing Force of One, where I played a professional fighter, and in the Octagon, which is the first ninja movie, and just kept right on, and so my career started building. But unfortunately, I got sucked into the entertainment world of Hollywood, and I wound up drifting from my faith. And it's amazing because at that time, I've done many films and I had fame and fortune, but I was very unhappy. And I couldn't figure out what it was why. I thought the harder I worked, the happier I would be. But the harder I worked, the more famous I got, the bigger the hole in my heart became. And I never could figure out why that was happening. And then I got offered to do the series Walker, Texas Ranger. And so I decided to do that. And I said, okay, if I'm going to do this series, I want to make it a very family-oriented series. So I started doing the show, and it became very successful. But again, I didn't have that joy, that happiness that I felt I should have in my life. And I couldn't figure out why. And my best friend was there, and he says, Chuck, I know why you're unhappy. You don't have, because during my film career, I wound up getting a divorce from my first wife. And so he says, you know, now, so this has been like 14 years since my divorce, and he says, you know, you need someone in your life. He said, I know a woman I'd like for you to meet. So I met my wife, Gina. And Gina was a strong Christian woman. And we wound up getting married, and I start off to go to the set to do Walker, and I get up and she'd be reading the Bible. And I says, oh, what do you do? She says, I read the Bible every morning. And she says, you got a few minutes, why don't you sit down and let me read aloud? So I said, okay. So I sat down and she started reading Proverbs and so forth. And it's like the Holy Spirit hit me. He says, Chuck, it's time to come home. And so I did. I renewed my faith. And then from there, Gina and I started doing a show on TV and so forth, and I was hot for the Lord, and believe me, I'm still to that day. And then always thought maybe it was the film career, but it wasn't, because God wasn't part of me during all this. And so anyway, I started a foundation, as you mentioned earlier, called Kickstart. You know, being a martial artist for 15 years, you know, I taught thousands and thousands of young people, and I was able to help them through the philosophy of the martial arts. I thought, but what about the millions of young kids in America whose parents can't afford to send their kids to a commercialized martial arts school? How can I reach them? And so I decided to start this program, teaching the martial arts in the inner city middle schools, funding it ourselves, and so these kids can come and train for free. And so Gene and I started this, and we, as they said, this is over 10 years ago, and we graduated over 50,000 kids. As they said, many going on to college. I have to tell you about one young boy, which is an incredible success story for us. His name was Gerardo Esparza. And Gerardo was a troubled young man, and getting into trouble. And I teach this in this middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, because that's when the kids start to drift off, and we grab up that young, impressionable age. We think we can get them on the right track of life. Anyway, Gerardo was a young kid who was a gang member, and when you go and join our program, you have to break off all gang ties, and the martial art group is your gang member. And so he had the 6th grade, we're teaching him, and we can't keep catching him with his gang friends. So we said, Gerardo, you cannot belong, you cannot associate with your gang members. And so he squeaked through the 6th grade with a D average. Then, during the summer, he broke off his gang ties and developed his relationships with his martial art friends. And in the 7th grade, he got a C average. The 8th grade, he got a B average. 9th through the 12th, straight A's, he got a full scholarship to MIT. And so, the thing is that the martial arts turned my life around, and I feel like it turned thousands of other kids who grew up like I did and turned their life around. But I would just like to leave this with all of you, and that's Proverbs 19:21. You know, many are the plans in a man's heart, but the Lord directs his steps. And when the Lord says man, he also means woman's steps as well. And the Lord has directed my steps now for the last 10 years, and he still continues to direct my steps. And I hope that you'll let him direct your steps. Because if you do, you can't go wrong, I promise you. Thank you very much.